Serious, Reddit. What situation or issue caused you to walk away from a friendship without another word to your friend again? Our daughters went to preschool together, and so we started socializing, with play dates twice or 3 times a week for about a year. The kids would play and we would drink coffee and chat. When I had to take my husband for surgery, she offered to watch my kid. It was the very first time she'd ever watched her without me there. I came back a few hours later to find my 3-year-old sitting in a corner looking as if she'd been crying. The ex-friend launched into this really detailed story about how my daughter had repeatedly tried to take a toy from her daughter, and so she'd had to give her a timeout, and my daughter was upset at the discipline. Got my kid in the car and asked what had happened. She said that she and her friend had argued over a toy. Ex-friend had gotten right into her face and screamed at her, so close that she had sprayed my daughter's face with spittle. Then ex-friend slapped her and slammed her into the wall. I pulled over and felt the back of my kid's head. There was a big lump on it, so we turned around and drove straight to the police station. The police interviewed me and my daughter. I later found out that they sent officers to interview ex-friend, and on the strength of their observations, Child Protective Services was brought in. She'd been beating her daughters fairly regularly with a belt. There were lots of injuries in various stages of healing, including a broken rib. Ex-friend got a suspended sentence and lost custody of her 2 children to her mother-in-law until she worked through an anger management and parenting program. I don't know if she ever completed it. Here's the worst part. I spent 2 or 3 hours a week with that woman for a year, and I had no clue she abused her children. None. Nothing she said ever raised red flags. I never saw her threaten or physically discipline her kids in public. Her daughters were very quiet and well behaved, maybe a little too eager to please adults, but nothing really remarkable. She never left marks in visible places. Thank you for believing your daughter. I stopped him and another friend from taking advantage of an underage girl who was passed out. Things ended up getting physical between me and them, and I walked out of their house after getting the girl back to a safe place. Haven't seen them since and never hope to. Thank you. As someone who was sexually abused by a significant other, told our mutual friends about it, and had to watch them continue to be friends with my ex, I really appreciate what you've done. It isn't easy to do this, and you probably saved that girl from a lifetime of trauma. When I found out he was messaging all my friends privately saying that if they stay friends with me they will freak up in life because I'll take them down a bad path, I honestly don't know why he thought this, but I never spoke to him again after that. Same. Only he gave me a reason. Because I asked another friend if he had any problems with me, and accused him of talking behind my back, which he admitted to. Now apparently most of my friends think I'm horrible and disgusting due to rumors. Yay. She accidentally emailed me when she meant to email someone else. In the email, she was talking crap about me. I deleted it. Cried. Never talked to her again. Good on you for deleting it. I have some fricked up compulsion to keep that sort of crap and read it years later only to feel crappy about all over again. Found out that a couple of friends of mine had a secret hobby they were keeping behind my back. They were basically pretending to be interested in depressed, insecure girls who were depressed and overweight with acne, so they would send them nudes and then turn around and embarrass and humiliate them. Frick that. Like, that's just fricking cruel. It wasn't limited to just overweight insecure girls, but that was their main target because it was more fun to pick on people with low self-esteem for them. That's just straight up evil. I can't imagine any normal person would get off on humiliating depressed girls. One of my best friend's girlfriend that I had known for 3 years, very good friend with both of them, had this crazy thought that I was in love with her and tried to steal her from him. He believed her and so did a lot of my other very good friends. I told them, if that what you think of me as a person after all these years, then frick off. This was during a party after we graduated. Frick her for manipulating my friends. John has enlightened me to the white man's plight and to the threat of the Jew. I cannot abide my brother bedding a Jew without intervening. If you continue to see that woman, I will kill both of you. Probably the darkest part of my life. This was my best friend of 11 years, a surrogate brother, and integral part of my childhood, and he'd threatened to kill me and an innocent woman because of her religion. There were no classic warning signs, no slippery slope, at least that I saw. He just started hanging out with some punk kid, and a few weeks later his head was shaved, and he was a big fan of eugenics. I haven't talked to him since. Chris, if you're reading, I'm sorry I wasn't a strong enough friend to get you out of there. I'm sorry I couldn't keep you from whatever made you so hateful. I hope you've come past your anger and I hope you're happy. I still think of you often. You're the reason I survived as long as I have. After several failed attempts to cheer her up, comfort her during a mental breakdown, I asked her what I could possibly do to help her, and she essentially told me to figure it out. It was a long distance friendship, and up to that point, she had been showing more noticeable signs of mental instability, and it was becoming a burden to talk to her because I became the scapegoat for her problems. I couldn't deal with it anymore, so I stopped talking to her. About 4 years later, she sent me a message saying she couldn't remember why we stopped talking, but that she was sorry for whatever happened. After going through some of her social media, she seemed a lot happier, healthier, so I welcomed her back into my life. We don't talk often, but I'm happy this story has a happier ending. Welcoming someone into your life sounds terrifying, but it's great that this does have a happy ending. My best friend from elementary school moved away in the kids of 5th grade. I had a terrible time adjusting, but was eager to hear from him again. Over the course of our respective school careers, he would come down almost every summer and we would hang out at each other's places of residence. He was staying with a cousin. Eventually our reunions stopped 1 year while I was living away from home, but I grew expectant for the next. We had been friends for so long. Why couldn't we wait a bit longer? When he showed up the next summer, everything had changed between us. We had grown into two complete different people that couldn't connect. Our last physical conversation detailed our plans for dinner. Our last text conversation went like this. Me. Hey, did you call me? Him. Number. Me. Oh, okay. Cool. Just checking. Growing apart is a scary thing, but crap happens. I had an almost identical experience. The last time we hung out, I knew we wouldn't be doing it again, and I could tell that he knew it too, because we could practically read each other's minds. I sent him a Facebook message a year or two later but didn't get a reply. I am a pretty laid back and easygoing guy. I will do favors for friends and go out of my way to help. I had one friend who would take advantage of those trays. He'll let it go for it a while, but if the taking never stops and favors are never returned, he'll walk away without ever looking back. The last straw for me was when a friend asked if I wanted to come over after a day party we had for a friend. He said he would drive and I could leave my car there and get it in the morning as it was right on the way to work. So I said sure, and went with. On the way home, he stopped to fill up and demanded gas money since he drove. He didn't ask, he demanded I pay half. I just got out, closed the door and walked away. I was living as a roommate in my friend's apartment. First he wanted to make a deal with me. His idea was that I should apply for a place in an elite student dormitory, because I had a decent chance to get it, but not move in, remain in his apartment as a tenant, pay him rent, and he would use my room in the dormitory as an office for his startup company, and give me a 6-pack of beer for this. I told him that first operating a company in a student dormitory will surely attract some unwanted attention, especially because 3 students were living in each and the other 2 students would be a bit upset when a company started working in their room. Second, it would be the business of the century to have a free room where I do not live and rent another room from him just for shoots and giggles. I asked him if he thought that from then on I will live in his flat for free. He reassured me that he thought that we are so good friends that he thought that I will pay him rent continuously but give him my dormitory room for free to use. After I said him to go frick himself, his next idea was to evict me from his flat but did not tell me in advance, because he was afraid that I will beat him up. We were friends for 10 years at that point and I never hurt or threatened him in any way during this decade. After this I told him to go frick himself and have not spoken to him in a decade. He seems like a manipulative opportunist. Good for you. My best friend in high school got mad when I didn't take him along with me to a date. When I told him that would just be weird, we got into a fight and he said yeah, but we're friends. Friends do things together and tried to insist that it's a normal thing friends do. Like he was really Truly mad that I didn't bring him along on a first date. This was really the breaking point though, because prior to this he blamed me for causing his depression because I wasn't socially inept and it made it feel bad about himself. Said I wasn't a true friend, even though I tried to help him with his depression for years. He said a mutual friend of ours who we only talked to about once a year was a better friend than me. Frick that noise. Also, he would just play video games all day and this caused him to nearly flunk high school. I'd try to help him with his work and he'd just brush me off. He wouldn't shower or shave regularly and I sometimes reminded him when he started getting gross and he would be mad at me about it. He had really bad self-esteem issues so he wouldn't change for PE. He just wore his smelly gym clothes under his normal clothes. He was a good guy but I couldn't be his caretaker. My best friend of 2 years began making racist comments to me about myself and my family out of the blue and refused to acknowledge that she had done anything wrong. From that incident I finally learned how to stand up for myself and I am no longer treated like a doormat, so every cloud has a silver lining, I guess. Repeatedly told me to shut up when around other people. When I made an issue over it he accused me of being a little bee and reminded people that one of my parents helped me pay my rent, even though he lives at home. Witnessed a gambling addiction swallow my friend's life up whole. Kid started innocently enough at 17. Got a fake and went to one of those casinos that really couldn't give a frick what age you actually were as long as you don't win. He lost every penny he had to his name up until that point. Had his fake taken from him that night too when he got pulled over on his way home. He then swiped his brother's debit card one day and ran him dry on an online casino. His parents banned his IP from the internet to prevent this in the future. So in turn he goes out, tells me he needs $100 for an emergency and goes out and buys a crappy laptop with it. He then swipes his mom's credit card and runs a $4K tab on that again on an online casino. Fast forward about a year now, I got over the whole laptop thing since I was working and didn't really care too much about $100. He tells me and a bunch of other people he's doing a fake ID order. We're all about to go to college, so it made sense to get in on this. Give him the money, take the photos. Everything seems smooth. Wrong, the kid takes the money, about $1.50 of his friend's money, buys himself a fake, then goes to the casino and loses it all. After this I basically told him to go frick himself, but got begged by both mine and his parents to stay in touch because he needed support now more than ever. That same summer before college, kid decides he wants to make another casino run. Asks me to chill one day. Long story short, kid had the balls to ask me if I wanted to rob a fricking house with him. I got in a fight with the kid and from what I understand he actually still did it. Didn't get caught either. Worst part about it is, from what I understand, he robbed his grandparents since he knew where they kept their valuables. I don't talk to this kid anymore, but from what I understand he later took his tuition money for college or something along those lines and basically gambled all of it. All I know now is that he's a college dropout and works at Burger King. The part that keeps me up at night is that part of me thinks I could have done more. Like, I could have just taken his keys so couldn't go to the casino. Or I could have told his parents, who are extremely good people, when and where he was heading when I knew. I don't even know what to think of the kid anymore, because he truly was a great friend at first but something just clicked one day and the kid just couldn't stop gambling. I really thought he had hope when he went to college, as his first 2 years he really did well, but his junior year, last year, something went awfully wrong and it all fell apart. I changed some of the info here because I didn't have the heart to completely put someone's life out there for freaking karma. But I hope someone out there reads this and maybe it helps them keep someone you thought would be your best friend forever when you were a kid. This happened a few days ago. A close friend of mine said he couldn't trust me anymore and we couldn't be friends anymore just because I didn't talk to him for 5 days. He didn't let me explain that in reality in those 5 days I was recovering from a suicide attempt. Glad you're still here. In 1997, when I was 12, I got into using chat rooms online with other people from across the world. I'm Aussie, and back then I thought it was the coolest thing ever. In 1999, while on Ike I started to speak to a guy called Chris. He was a year older than me. He lived in the Los Angeles area and he was so cool at the time. He was in a band, had piercings, was a rocker, skateboarded, etc. And we would talk for hours every day. I'd get home from school to tell him about my day, and it'd be the evening for him too. But the day before, heck, I'd even say that he shaped my teen years, as he inspired my music taste in TV shows and gave me a lot of advice. I wouldn't say we dated, but I'd have considered him my best friend. Sometime in 2000, he told me that he would be coming on vacation to Australia in January 2001, and as you could have imagined, I was over the moon. My city is a popular tourist destination a few hours away from Sydney, where he was staying for a couple of weeks. So over many months we planned what we would do, where we would go, and everything. The time came. We didn't speak much over the course of a few days, with him being on vacation and all that, but we planned the day we would meet, and how I was to be picked up by the car his parents had rented on their vacation. The day was here, and I was so excited. I got ready in the morning, and waited for the day to be picked up by him and his parents. Day turned into night, but I stayed there, hoping that he'd simply been delayed. The following day, I waited again. I'd sent email after email to him, MSN message after message, but he didn't respond to me. Chris never came. The following morning after that, I called the home number he gave me a while ago and I had written down. I never called him because that's when call costs overseas were sky high, to try and see if there was anyone at his house who could give me any info on their whereabouts, cause I was worried. He answered the phone, after me going crazy on him, me crying, him beating around the bush. What I basically found out was that I had been had. It all seemed to be some sort of sick joke and he had never even left the US. The vacation, the plans we made, was all a lie. I never knew why he did it either, and to this day, I still don't. But after that point, I decided that we maybe shouldn't talk anymore. But 14 years down the line, I do occasionally wonder what he's up to, or if he'll ever read this. TLDR. I was severely trolled by an American who wanted to meet up with me, but happened to be 8,000 miles from me instead. Her boyfriend raped me and she defended him. I'm pretty sure they are still together. This was almost 3 years ago. A few months back she texted me and asked how I was doing. I told her to frick off. One time when I was around 12, me, my best friend, my older cousin, and my best friend's older brother were hanging out. My cousin was good friends with my best friend's older brother, so we were all hanging out, playing basketball, shooting the crap, and my cousin mentioned to everyone that he had gotten a BJ from a guy before. I already knew this, because I was that guy. So my best friend and his older brother were curious and asked him who it was. That's when he looked right at me. He stared at me for a solid 3 seconds. My best friend and his older brother knew at that point. My cousin may as well have came out and said it. All I remember is that they kept asking me and wouldn't drop it and I literally had no words to say about it. I have never been so humiliated in my entire life before or since that moment. I went inside and told my mom that I really wanted to go home, and we left shortly afterwards. I avoided my best friend like the plague and I moved out of state a few months later. I was gonna move anyway due to something completely unrelated. I couldn't look him in the eyes, him knowing that about me. I thought that I loved her. We had been friends with benefits for 2 years. She initiated the kissing, and I had taken her home. As she got out of the car that I drove her 40 miles just to get home in, I ran out to give her a goodbye hug, which she graciously accepted. Then she proceeded to tell our mutual best friend that I came at her. She was genuinely scared, and she didn't know if she should press charges or not. Quote, I thought he was going to rape me. End quote. I wish that was the actual end, but there was one more time that she called. A couple weeks later, she told me she was stranded far away from her apartment and she needed some help. While I was furious that she had done this crap to me, I decided to help. My friends and I picked her up. I didn't talk to her at all, and then, my real best friend suggested, hey, why don't we get something to eat first, because he didn't know what had happened between the chick and I. Everyone loved the idea except me. We went to a restaurant and I literally pretended to have an important phone call and walked around the neighborhood, too sick to my stomach to be near the table, until my best friend called me and said we should get going. We dropped the chick off, but before we did, she said, hey, I just wanna be honest with you. And she then told me that the reason she was stranded was because she had went to her person's house to have sex with them and she needed a ride home. I told the driving friend, let's get out of here. I never spoke to her again even though she tried to text and Facebook me many times. That's a B right there. So, this actually happened Friday, but it's been a long time coming. She blew up my phone because of something so stupid regarding her boyfriend. I responded and was there for her even though I was in class. But when I told her to call me because I needed to talk to her about something important, she totally blew me off, ignored the fact that I've called her and texted me about something so useless. I never bothered responding and I plan on never responding ever again. It just proved to me how little she gave a frick about me. Over the last few months, I've come to realize that I was the only one who put in any effort in that friendship. I was the one who drove to her, who texted her, who was there for her, but she couldn't even do that for me. The last time I saw was 3 months ago and that was because I drove to see her. She's never bothered to make any plans with me, and all the plans I make, she blows them off with the most ridiculous excuses. So, I decided to cut her off. She's a Redditor too. It sucks because I thought this girl was one of my best friends. I just feel so taken advantage of. You better get some acid cause this sounds like a basic B. Growing up, I didn't have many close friends. I was a bit of a social outcast, a bit of a loner, and it wasn't until after college when I truly met friends whom I cared about like family. The sad part is I cared about them like family, but it seemed like they didn't feel the same way about me. Flash forward about 10 years. I've had these friends for a long time and I considered them my very best friends. My dad became suddenly ill. I contact my friends, give them the heads up that my dad wasn't doing well. They said, whatever you need, we're there for you man. My dad quickly gets worse and eventually passes away. I of course give my friends the heads up, tell them he passed. I get the so sorry man and the like. I then pass word about the dates and times for the funeral and wake. They didn't show up. I can understand if they had work or no car, and I had a couple of friends who honestly and wholeheartedly couldn't make it. I also had friends who did, but these close friends couldn't even have bothered to at least call to say they couldn't go or apologize for not going. This single action by them killed a 10-year-long friendship. The sad part is, they went out of their way when another friend's mother passed away years ago, but for my dad, nothing. I actually stopped speaking to someone after I found out how she had wronged one of my other close friends. It was in high school and seems strange and petty, but the friend I stopped speaking to was telling a lot of people my good friend was cheating on her boyfriend. She even went as far as to tell the boyfriend's mother. It was just so random and odd. If a friend can screw someone over, they can do it to you, too. If a friend can screw over a friend of theirs and yourself, and is willing to, they're not a friend. He posted a huge ranted on my FB wall about how Obama was the Antichrist and how he couldn't wait for someone to kill him and if they didn't do it soon he would. I blocked him on everything. Nobody needs that level of crazy in their life. I had a few friends once upon a time that thought it was funny to get into each other's FB and post stuff like that. My friend of 4 years basically told me I was a bastard and cut contact. I loved to a new town to start a career after college, and I slowly started to drift from my college friends. As you do. It wasn't far away but we always kept in touch constantly, almost every day. One time, I was going to come down so we could both catch up and vent about careers and stuff. She asked me to get a bag of crisps on my way to see her, and I said no because I was with my parents in the car at the time. I'd driven 60 miles just because we were going to have a night to talk. She said the crisps represented a larger issue, said I was selfish and rude. She said she didn't want to speak to me anymore. It broke me for months. I questioned everything about my character and whether I was a mean person. Just like that, 4 years of loyalty down the drain for what seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back. I did ask her why she never said anything, and she was equally to blame if so. I'd have thought we were close enough to talk about stuff like that. It still haunts me. I thought we'd be friends forever. I guess I was wrong. A few of my closest friends basically did the same thing to me, leaving me feeling the same way you do. It felt like getting the wind knocked out of me and I still have nightmares. Stop questioning your character. You want friends who can be real with you and who will speak up when something is bothering them so that you can work it out. Fickle friends are not worth it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.